Hello and welcome back to Exothermic Plays Games. I'm Exothermic and the date today is Saturday, May 18th, 2024. I've been doing a countdown of my favorite video games of all time through each day of the year, and coming in at number 228 is Tooth and Tail.
The city feasted on my boy! We took to the warrens and lit the country aflame! Who decides the fate of animals? The Longcoats? The common folk? The KSR? Or the civilized? Whoever triumphs will go hungry no more. Those who fall will be dinner.
As mentioned a couple of times on this channel, I love real-time strategy games. It may not look it based on the current rankings themselves, but that's more because I hold them to a very high standard, and the ones that make the cut tend to rank very highly. RTS games have notoriously high development costs because the mechanical engines behind them have to be extremely articulate on top of loads of art and sound assets. It's not just enough for game feel to be precise, but also the unit balance and design takes tons of time from conceptualization to the final product, requiring many rounds of iteration and fine-tuning. For reference, Halo Wars, which I had ranked as my 260th favorite game, had a budget of tens of millions of dollars with over 100 people working on the game, and even then, the reason they couldn't make a Covenant campaign in it was lack of resources. All of this is to say that what Tooth and Tail was able to accomplish with a budget of just over $1 million with a very small development team is astounding. If you liked the Redwall books, you'll love the aesthetic and story behind Tooth and Tail. You play as different factions of mice vying for power amidst a coup across their animal society. The campaign story has you playing as a commander within the different factions. Each leg of the campaign has you running around a base of operations where you can talk to your fellow combatants and soak in the atmosphere by interacting with different items and others around you. Some of the animals you can talk to will have missions for you, which you play in order. Each mission has a primary objective to win, but also a challenge objective that increases your score and serves as an additional way to scale the difficulty of the game. There's a leaderboard for each mission so you can compete with your other friends that own the game, or even for a spot on the global leaderboard. Each mission will give you access to a set number of different unit types as you progress, and some, at least in the campaign, are more focused on specific factions. This will work a bit differently in multiplayer, but I'll cover that when we get there. You start out with a grist mill surrounded by farming patches, and the only unit you typically have is your commander and maybe some working farms. The commander can't actually fight, but rallies units to them, either as the whole army or of a singular unit type. Your commander is critical not only in being able to mobilize your army, but also for scouting information. Run around the map to explore, but you can hold the burrow button to head back to any of your grist mills for safety. The terrain is also important for this as you move very painfully slowly in water, so you have to be mindful of it for chases. The game is designed to be played on a controller, like Halo Wars, but taking it a few steps even further to make the game more approachable to people without an RTS background. There's only one currency in the game, in the form of food. You can spend your food to build more farms in those patches, which creates pigs that work the land and protect your gristmill. With guns. One of the most interesting parts of Tooth and Tail's economy is that once a farm is built, that's the total amount of resources that will be in that tile. But your pigs can be killed, requiring you to spend food to get another one. You can also capture additional grist mills, and most maps will have neutral ones for you to capture. However, if you defeat an enemy grist mill and capture it, you'll still be limited to the amount of resources that were left there. Army units are spawned by making nests, which has an upfront cost and then an additional cost that happens on cooldown when making a new unit of that type. Though sometimes in campaign missions, there's also mercenaries you can find on the map to hire without that upfront investment. You're limited to how many of each unit you can have in total by how many of each nest you've built, meaning your army easily scales linearly with your income, including how quickly you can rebuild when things die. It's a simple concept that's usually true in RTS, but it's rarely so directly connected to how much you've invested in your infrastructure. There's a pretty good variety of units in the game, from weak swarmy units to big heroes with giant guns. You've got artillery and a variety of flyers, each with a different use. Each of the unit designs are pretty simple by necessity, as without being able to directly control units, you can't really have spellcasters, meaning everything needs to have a very clear design and purpose. Utilizing the different animals helps communicate everything perfectly and makes for a lot of great visual design. The multiplayer mechanically works much the same as the campaign, except the win condition is always destroying all of your opponent's gristmills, and you can get access to every unit in the game, but can only pick 6 of them going into the match, so you can really customize your loadout based on your strategy and playstyle. Even though there aren't truly multiple playable factions that are asymmetrically balanced, as the commander you pick is more about aesthetics than anything else, you can still get a lot of player agency and make a name for yourself by exploring different unit loadouts. I do want to mention, this segment is the first thing I've actually recorded on my Steam Deck, so you're seeing things as they would have looked with that, and I have to say that the game handles great on there, and with how quick the games are, I think I may do more multiplayer than ever now that I can take it on the go. The online player base still exists, but is pretty sparse, so you'd have to do some real legwork to get games going. That being said, it's still fun to play against AI, and that's worth it. All in all, Tooth and Tail is overflowing with charm, from the characters and writing to art design to even the extremely satisfying sounds that happen during combat. The accessibility decisions they made and simplifications on the multiplayer RTS gold standards allow the game to have the same polish and superb game feel as something that cost many times more than this did to develop. While it lacks some of the mechanical depth of a Blizzard RTS, it's still extremely satisfying, and I keep periodically having an itch to come back to it several years after its release. Join me tomorrow as I talk about the 227th game on my list, where I eat a ghost.